Okay, so now onto the brakes, and I'll probably do the fender in this video too because brakes are pretty easy. So for brakes, you pretty much have to use a set of axial or radial mounted calipers. Radial mounted. So that means the bolts go in this way, not this way like the stock Ninja 650 brakes. So the reason you have to use this style is the stock calipers won't fit in between this, and then there, even if you did, you'd have to make like some crazy bracket, even more crazy than this fender mount bracket, which is kind of crazy, but whatever. But you'd have to do something like really crazy to get it to work, and then you'd be doing all that work for, you know, crappy brakes. The Tokico brakes, you can get these in like gold, black, silver, whatever. These are on 03 to 06 bikes. These are good brakes, but they're pretty spongy. So I'll show you what I mean. So here's kind of where brake pressure starts, like right there, and all the way until like right there is not that stiff. Like it kind of progressively gets stiffer, but all of that area is like not too much. And then after that is where it gets like actually stiff. So if you're riding hard and you like grab the brakes pretty hard, you gotta do a lot of like lever engagement to like get stiff brakes. For me, that works alright because I don't ride too crazy. Plus, I've only been riding like a year and a half, so you know, it's good that I have a little cushion, so I don't go too brake crazy. If you're riding like really hard track days, like upper intermediate group, or like advanced group, or you just ride on the edge, you probably want to go with the 07 and newer bikes. So ZX6R, ZX10R, ZX14, the Concourse, all of those are pretty much have the same brakes. It's just a matter of whether you go the Nissan, which is the newer like upgrade brakes, or the Tokicos, which are the older. The Nissans are have a much more initial bite, so it takes a lot less lever to get that like harder bite. So it just depends on if you want to pick up these for like $70, which I did, or if you want to get the Nissans for 130 to 150 plus. You know, approaching double the price. They are a lot better. It's just a matter of, do you need to go from one is the stock 650 brakes to a 2 with the Tokicos, or do you want to go to a 3 with the Nissans? It just depends which one you need or want better. So one thing to note, the Tokicos, which I didn't realize this till after I had already put it together, the Tokicos have the brake hose, brake line mount in the middle of them. So as you can see, I had to like extend this bracket, and the second part is actually held on by zip ties till I fix it, extend that one even more. So the 650 brakes calipers have the mount for the hoses up top. The Tokicos have them in the middle, which means that your line, let's see if I can show this, has to go behind the lower triple clamp on the back of it, instead of on the front where you can use this bolt, and a little bracket to kind of hold it in place. So, you know, spin it this way. So see this, that little bracket? That's where the hose is supposed to go through. And I kind of like crimped the horn bracket so it fit. But yeah, the brake line is supposed to go through that, but it doesn't reach because it's not long enough. So it has to go on the back. And it's like just barely long enough with the lever kind of angled down for it to work this way. So either you'll have to route it like that or get longer brake cables, hoses, if you use the Tokikos. I don't mind it being this way. I've rode several hundred miles and it's worked perfectly. But if you get the Nissans, the mount is also up top, so these cables will work exactly how they would on the Ninja 650 calipers. So just something to keep in mind on that. If you're worried about the brake hose length and you don't want to have to do all this crazy bracket for the like holders, and you want the stiffer like initial bite brakes, just go with the Nissans. So for the fender mount, to use the stock 650 Ninja 650 fender, basically I made this bracket and just kind of shaped it to the same like thing outline as the like mount on the fork, lower fork. And let me get in here. So as you can see on the other side, I found a piece of metal that I had laying around that had slots in it, and I welded that to the lower piece that I made, that I cut. See if I can can't really see it that great from over there, but basically I just welded that piece with the slots to the other one. Then I could run a bolt through it. That kind of let me locate it up and down. It didn't need that much. You do have to cut the bottom of the 650 fender, because this kind of like wraps around, like angles back in. So in order for this to work, you kind of just got to cut the bottom section out. It's really not even noticeable once it's on the bike. Just when you do any cuts like this on plastic or painted parts, put painter's tape over it and then mark your line on the painter's tape, and then cut through the painter's tape. It will prevent the edge from chipping the paint. That's a quick tip. So that lets me get the front bolt through the fender and my bracket, and it kind of slides up and down to adjust it. Then drill a hole in this and, you know, put that bolt hole through. This piece is threaded, so just use one of those bolts. And then on the back, I made this crazy bracket from a bunch of random pieces of metal I had laying around. For the calipers, you need these spacers, because the 650 rotor is 300 millimeter and the rotor on the ZX6R forks, these older sets of like 03, 04, is 280. So you need 10 millimeter spacers. I found at Ace Hardware these little spacers, and they were like 3/8 inch, I think. Take one of your bolts with you and find one that it fits through, and then 3/8 inch, I believe it was, like width, height, whatever. And that 3/8 is 9.5 millimeters. So I mean, you're talking tiny bit of difference. So I checked everything, lined it all up, you know, looking at the, probably can't tell, focus, but you can kind of see in there, that in the middle is the rotor. So it fits and it works fine. As you can see, I rode a couple hundred miles and like it's not getting any like weird edges. So it's grabbing where it's supposed to. That 0.5 millimeter is not going to make any big difference. So for the fender, back to the fender, basically I just sanded down the spacer and then welded a piece of metal to it, and I twisted it all up in the vise, bench vise, and then made an extension. So it's like this really long piece of metal just to go to the upper mount, because the 650 forks, since they're not inverted, the lower tube has like a little tab that sticks off right here that the fender mounts through. And since you can't make anything like that, your option is drill a second hole in this, make a tall bracket, and then do 2 bolts here. But then the back of the fender can kind of wiggle side to side, and it's a pretty tight fit. So I kind of didn't go with that idea because I wanted something in the back supporting it like how it was factory. So that's why I did this tall bracket. And then just drill a hole in your new bracket, put the head of the bolt, I don't know if you can see it, but you'll put the head of the bolt on the back side so there's nothing sticking out there like hit your wheel or a tire. And then you can cut, extend, whatever you need to do for these brake line like holder bracket. And that's pretty much it. That's how I have the stock fender, stock wheel, stock wheel bearing, stock axle. Reused the stock brake line hoses, and then we got the better brakes on there, fully adjustable forks, and up top we got the stock Ninja 650 handlebars and handlebar risers, levers, controls, all that stuff. Some people have said that this master cylinder is not good enough for the new brakes, and honestly it's not true. You could definitely get away with the stock master cylinder, brake master cylinder. Obviously it's not going to be as good of a feel as the radial mount. So basically the way this works is when you press this, it's kind of like pressing sideways. It's like a rotating action against the piston, so you get like a little not as precise brake feel. On the radial mounted ones that come on the ZX6R, ZX10R, and etc., they have a radial mount, so it actually like pushes directly in when you push this, pushes in, so you get a lot better feel with those. But as far as braking performance, there's not that much difference other than the feel. So my goal was to do budget build, so I reused as much as possible that I already had. And that's the whole bike. You know, it's all together now. Got the forks on, brakes on, wheel, everything mounted. Handlebar risers. The riding position is pretty much the same. I think the only major difference I noticed is if you lean on the bars, you will get like a little bit more like numbness in your hands. Not from bad position so much as just that the handlebars are not mounted inside of those bushings like I showed you. So they're solid mount, which means all the little vibration from the road and the suspension of the force moving kind of transfers to your hands more. So a little bit worse on like the, you know, hand discomfort if you're riding for a long time, you know, a couple hours or more. But other than that, it rides the same position and everything, same amount of comfort, but these forks are quite a bit stiffer, and so you get a lot better kind of handling performance out of them, and just like being able to tune them, adjust them for different uses. I kind of just have memorized, like I put them at the softest setting basically for when I'm just cruising around, and then if I'm going to go ride hard with friends or wherever, you know, do some twisty roads, then I set them at my settings for how stiff I need them, because it only takes a couple of minutes to change them back and forth. And that's it, guys. That's the bike. It's completed, put back together, riding, and let me know if you have any questions or if you are planning on doing the swap.